Imagine spending 30 years at a company, showing up every day, watching it grow, trusting it with your future. Now, imagine watching it disappear. This is the story of Sears, and it's a warning every retiree needs to hear. In its prime, Sears wasn't just a store. It was an institution. By the mid-20th century, Sears was the largest retailer in the world. 1 out of every 2 Americans owned a Sears credit card. You could buy a refrigerator, a lawnmower, a suit, and a life insurance policy, all under one roof. For millions of working Americans, Sears wasn't just where they shopped. It was where they built their careers. Warehouse workers, sales clerks, buyers, managers, people who started in the stockroom and retired as store directors. Decades of loyalty, rewarded with steady paychecks and pension promises. It felt unshakable. It felt permanent. That's exactly why what happened next matters so much. The trouble didn't happen overnight. It never does. Through the 1980s and 90s, the retail landscape began to shift. Walmart was expanding aggressively, winning on price. Target was capturing younger shoppers with style, and a small company in Seattle called Amazon was quietly changing how people thought about buying things altogether. Sears saw the competition. Leadership knew the threats were real, but instead of adapting, instead of investing in the stores, modernizing the experience, or building a strong online presence, a series of decisions were made that prioritized short-term financial engineering over long-term survival. Assets were sold off. Divisions were spun out. Billions were spent on stock buybacks instead of improvements. The stores grew older, the shelves grew thinner, and the customers, slowly, quietly, started going elsewhere. By the time most people noticed Sears was in trouble, the damage had been done for years. Here's what gets lost in the business headlines. When Sears filed for bankruptcy in 2018, it wasn't just investors who lost money. It was the people who had given that company their working lives. Thousands of employees lost their jobs. Retirees who had counted on pension benefits faced uncertainty about what they would actually receive. People who had done everything right, worked hard, stayed loyal, trusted the system, found themselves in a position they never imagined. And many of them had one thing in common. They had put almost all of their financial faith in one place. Their income came from Sears. Their pension came from Sears. In some cases, their retirement savings were heavily concentrated in Sears stock. When the company fell, everything fell together. That's not a personal failure. That's a structural vulnerability, and it's one that millions of people are still exposed to today, without even realizing it. So, what do we take from this? First, no company is too big to fail. Not Sears. Not any of the names we consider safe and stable today. Business history is filled with giants that collapsed, and the warning signs are rarely obvious until it's too late. Second, loyalty to your employer is admirable, but your retirement plan cannot rely on that loyalty being returned. Companies restructure, pensions get cut, industries change. Your financial future needs to be built on more than one foundation. That means diversifying your savings, spreading your investments across different assets, not just the stock of your employer or your industry. It means understanding what your pension actually guarantees versus what it assumes. It means having income sources that are independent of any single company's health. And third, it's never too late to ask the right questions. How exposed are you right now to a single company or a single source of income? What would happen to your retirement if that source changed? You don't need to panic, but you do need to know. Sears wasn't brought down by bad people. It was brought down by a changing world and by decisions that failed to keep pace with that change. The employees who lost out weren't naive. They were trusting. There's a difference. The lesson isn't to distrust every employer or live in fear of the future. The lesson is this: protect yourself the way a truly stable company should have protected them, by not putting everything in one place. Diversify, stay informed, Ask hard questions about your financial picture before the answers become urgent. Because the companies we trust most are often the ones we forget to question. And by the time the questions feel necessary, it can already be too late.